Decompensation is a well-established pattern in how adaptive systems fail. We have a system abstracted as a range of target performance, a gray bar in this diagram from left to right of the diagram. Time moves from left to right, and under the course of normal operations, the system is routinely tested by a variety of different disturbances that are represented by these black arrows pointing down, for which we have matching adequate controls that are generally activated with some lag between the onset of the disturbance. So you can see that the timing of the disturbance, there's a bit of a gap before our control sets in. But the pattern of disturbances matched by controls keeps us in a target range of performance. And that's the adaptive cycle that we're under. All such systems will encounter new circumstances in which the disturbances exceed normal operations, or what we have known prior to the new circumstances. So this is represented by an arrow that's probably 15% larger than the patterns we've seen before. And it turns out that within our controls, we're able to stretch ourselves to match the level of disturbance. There's a corresponding lag that's typical for our previous performance, and we've managed to stretch to match the new threat. But often the onset of the new normal starts to grow, and our controls similarly need to grow to meet these larger disturbances. And there's often also a change in frequency. You can see that the arrows here are getting packed closer together. And there's a point at which in the decompensation pattern, we've reached the limit of our capacity to adapt. So we've bottomed out on how much we can stretch in our adaptations. And it's worth noting that the disturbances are not similarly capped. The disturbances continue to come larger and larger and larger, and with the same level of frequencies that we've been having, which pushes us out of our tolerable range of performance. So often at this point is when an incident's been declared, but when we're in the decompensation pattern, this phase of decompensation, the disturbances come even larger and stronger over a period of time. Our adaptations are not able to keep pace. Our tempo doesn't get any faster to match the increased tempo of the disturbances, and we find degraded capacity to match the disturbances. At some point, we reach a brittle collapse. So the pattern helps us see why it is that time and again, we will see an example of a system that was believed to be reliable. In fact, plenty of evidence that it was reliable with recurring successful response to recurring disturbances, nevertheless encounters a change in its environment that leads to a brittle collapse. One of the key features of decompensation is that in hindsight, we can identify when the circumstances were normal, when they grew beyond the capacity. We can see in hindsight where the adaptations were limited, and we can maybe even mark where decompensation began. But when you're in the middle of an incident, you can't tell if you're heading for a decompensation cycle. If you were in some cases, you might have a surge event and the disturbances subside and you're able to come back into tolerable performance. You can't tell if you're about to be meeting the circumstances that are going to take you out into a brittle collapse.